makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In this episode, we are going to have a conversation with Lorie D. Spiers. Lorie is a certified divorce coach, certified mediator, and owner of Roseville Paralegal Services. She has been helping people through the divorce process for almost 30 years now. Her passion is to help men and women go through a peaceful divorce and avoid making permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Hi Lorie, thank you for being here with us today and to share your knowledge and in your journey as well. And I'm grateful to meet other female founders making a change in this world. And you spent 30 years in the legal field, and now you are into such a unique profession. I call it unique because we actually need that. But I want to take you back to your backstory. What led you to discover your path change?
The path change recently, as you said, I had spent 30 years in the legal field, the largest part, probably 20 plus years in family law. I tried a couple other fields and they just were not for me. And I ended in family law, helping people with divorce. Thousands of people I've helped go through divorce, and I'm not an attorney, so I would assist either mediating, as I'm a certified mediator, or I just help them with the documents so they were not overwhelmed, help them reach an agreement, that kind of thing. And along the way, every divorce came with emotion. And even though that wasn't necessarily my role at the time, the clients felt comfortable enough with me to tell me what they were going through. And I found myself kind of coaching them or helping them navigate their emotion. We'd create tools to help them kind of move past this stage or into the next chapter of their life. And that's the part that I just fell in love with. If I could make people a little better off when they left my office than they were when they arrived, it just filled me up. And a lot of the divorce cases, and no two are the same because no people are the same. There was a lot of anxiety that people had, fear of the divorce, fear of what happens next, fear of all the what ifs, so it would breed anxiety. And I personally spent 10 years dealing with anxiety and panic attacks. So I was able to kind of share my knowledge and help people find ways to move forward and beyond anxiety. And again, if I can just make a tiny bit of a difference to someone going through a really difficult time, it very selfishly fills me up and makes me so happy. It just gives me a purpose.
Actually, Lorie, I don't think it's selfish. I think that what you are doing is you are making a difference in this world one person at a time, which is that's the best way you can possibly do it. Because when you do it with a group of people, usually it's not as touchy as you will want it to be. So that's what you've been doing
Right.
for before you
Thank
even
you.
you have been doing this before you even think about doing it in the real life, which is kind of
Right
cool.
before there was a title or a name to it,
Yeah.
it just was something that came so natural. Even though the law has no place for emotions, the court does not care the who's, the why's, the what's, or how you feel about it. It's pretty straightforward. But divorce is an emotional issue. It's just something that you can't really separate, and there's no place for them to heal.
Yes, exactly. I agree. So from that moment you that's when you decide to make a switch, but I also know that you went through your own divorce as well. Does that add something into it to say I'm going to make that switch?
I don't know if it has anything to do with when I made the switch. It would have been nice if I knew someone who offered the same services as I do now when I was going through it. My ex-husband is a really great guy. There was no act that somebody did wrong or one thing that dissolve the marriage. It just wasn't working. And I can honestly say we tried everything we could to salvage it and it just didn't work. But even though it was amicable and we knew it was the best choice for us, it was still extremely painful and extremely difficult. So when clients come in and they're struggling, I can not only say, but I know what you're going through both personally and professionally. I think it's given me even a greater sense of empathy because I know I thought about the divorce for years and years. Divorce isn't something that people just come up with overnight and decide this is what I'm going to do and take lightly. One partner's probably thought about it for months, if not years, before making the decision. And then the other partner who's going along, probably thinking everything's okay, gets blindsided. So no two parties are ever on the same emotional page. And it becomes an issue moving forward or trying to make decisions or reach agreements because the emotions are so different. So as far as the transition to make a long answer, sorry, I think it just made me even more empathetic and realize the importance of having somebody be able to help you get through those emotions.
Absolutely. But you said something that is really interesting. You said that both of them usually not in the same page. It's like one of them is like a complete surprise. Huh? Divorce? Compared to the other one, it's like, yeah, let's do it.
Yes,
So which one of them do
yes.
you usually deal with? Do you deal with the one that's already make the decision or the one that's gonna go through the problem itself?
That's a great question. I deal with both because sometimes there's such emotional strife even before making the decision. So I help people who are thinking about divorce, going through divorce, maybe blindsided because their partner said, I want a divorce, or post divorce when they're sitting there going, what the heck just happened? And now what do I
I
do?
do.
But I am there and I have, again, been doing this for such a long time and very, very rarely throughout the entirety of the process are they ever on the same emotional page. And the emotions, much like death, are very different. There's, anger and hurt and distrust and denial and sadness. And those feelings kind of rotate through the process and it's very, very rare that they will experience the feelings at the same time.
So do you think when you do you think that there's a well I guess the question I should ask you is what's the percentage of them that's actually said I'm going through this and they change their mind and go back to the partners and keep the marriage going?
In my caseload alone, in what I've seen, maybe 3%
Wow, that's a very low percentage.
that they go back to the partners, which is interesting because if, I'm glad that you brought that up. I've been a certified mediator for a very long time, and I've helped hundreds of people reach a divorce agreement. And it just got me thinking, before we get to that point, there's got to be something we can do. Maybe we can save a marriage here and there. And I thought, why couldn't I mediate a marital agreement? Now,
Hmm.
it's not binding with the court, it's not filed, but most of the clients that come in my office, their partner has not met their expectations. And I'm not sure that they've ever even clearly expressed those expectations to the
Expectation.
client. So with marital mediation, I provide a safe space for both parties to come in, and I don't care who did what or how you got here or why the marriage is broken down. What I deal with is how are we going to move forward in the marriage that you both want? We talk about money, intimacy, chores, children, shopping, you name it, anything that can be an issue, let's talk
Wow.
about it. Let's give each partner the chance to say, this is what I need from you. And let's give the other one a chance to say, I'm willing to do that or I'm not willing to do that. But at least let's communicate what is needed in the marriage and see if we can't save it.
Do you think that before people got married, they should actually lay all these things down? Like who's doing this or that? Where do I need help? And how do everything in the household work together to make it happen?
100%. I mean, in every major business transaction that we go through, there's some kind of contract or both parties know what they're getting. when you fall in love and it's beautiful and you're happy and you're giddy and there's the butterflies and you decide to get married, then you focus on the wedding. And there may be thoughts along the way about how many children we want, but the nitty gritty is very rarely discussed. And then we have these expectations in our head of what we expect our spouse to do or be. And if we don't communicate them, there's just no way they're ever going to meet them. They're not mind readers. Although I know that there are a few clients that I've had that expected them to know without communicating.
That-
They should just know. And I'm thinking that's not fair. And if they're clearly communicated, nobody's going to be let down.
That's true. That's absolutely true. I always
And
go
more
ahead.
importantly, I'm sorry, more importantly, if it's clearly communicated your needs, your wants, your expectations before the marriage, it gives the other party the option to say, I don't want to do that. I don't think I can do that. And you're not wasting precious time.
Exactly. I think one of my biggest one in my bucket list of marriage is that you're gonna do chore in the house. If I cook, you clean, and if you clean, I cook. That those type of little things, and it's like a partnership. It's not just I pay bills and
Right.
then the wife do everything in the house. What do you think? I'm your mommy? I'm not your mother.
Exactly. And we think those little things are not important. But what happens is you've got an expectation of your spouse's role and how they communicate with you and what they do in the role of the spouse. And then when they don't do it, instead of saying, hey, I need you to do this, or hey, let's talk about this, you get angry, you get resentful, and it builds and builds and builds. And then one day you're sitting there going, I'm not happy. And the other party has no idea
Yeah,
why
exactly.
or what just happened. Yeah,
Exactly, because you didn't talk. I think communication is a key. The same way you use communication in your business is the same way it needs to be used at home as well. Even with your children, if you communicate, you get
right.
a lot out of your kids.
Absolutely. If you don't communicate, how is the other person expected to know what you want and what you need, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're doing? And a marriage is a partnership. You guys have got to be on the same page moving forward because marriage is forever evolving, just like life. So you've got to figure out where you're going, what you want, how are you getting there, who does what. And if you don't talk about it and then check in as life changes, it just breeds issues and resentment. And, hopefully they don't one day end up in somebody's office asking for a divorce.
Exactly. Do you think that if people actually take that extra communication every before they even got married and they lay it down, okay, this is how everything going to plan. I'm not saying life's not gonna change. Life change sometimes, well, all the time. But anyway,
Absolutely.
they kind of sit and talk about not just the wedding part, how excited we are, we're gonna get married, we'll move into a big house, but how things going to work after we got married. Do you think that if they actually do that, there will be a chance that in this country we will have less divorce?
I think so. I think, divorce, there's such a high percentage rate, especially for people on their second or third marriages. And all these things that may seem insignificant or we'll figure it out later, you know, they're important. And if you put an outline together and start filling in the blanks, and then, the roles aren't carved in concrete. So what works in the first 3 years of marriage may not work in the next several years of marriage. So you've got to continuously, but it's very important to not only clearly communicate, but to hear the other party. You know, if somebody says something, you've got to understand how it's intended and what they're saying. Otherwise, again, you're not on the same page. So that's the hard part. Communication, I think if the parties learned effective ways to do it and weren't scared of doing it or thought, I don't want to tell him that because it's going to hurt his feelings or she'll get upset with me if I do this. If they just learn to communicate, they could get through anything.
Absolutely. They can save the marriage later on.
Yes, yes. And communicate on parenting styles before children even come. What do you think about punishment? Are you a timeout person? Are you a gold star on the wall person? I mean, it seems so silly, but we give a lot of thought to our careers or how we're going to get to this destination. we need to give the same thought to something as important and wonderful as marriage.
Absolutely. So you are a certified divorce and life coach. So what are the services you
Yes.
provide?
I'm a certified mediator. I'm a certified divorce and life coach, as you said. So I help people with the emotional aspects of divorce, and I help people with anxiety, whether that stems from a divorce or other life trauma. And then I do marital mediation again, which is something I created trying to keep more marriages together. And if the parties have exhausted every avenue and they still want a divorce, I can help them with that process through filing paperwork or helping them draft it.
Wow, that's like a
That is,
one-stop shop.
yeah, it is a one-stop shop. I'd prefer the former in helping people navigate through tough times and save a marriage. But again, sometimes they've tried everything and like my ex-husband, it just didn't work. And he's a wonderful guy and there's no ill will, and we are both in better spaces and better off for knowing each other and the time we had together. But sometimes it just isn't meant to be.
Absolutely. Do you have like, is it like one-on-one coaching or do you have programs that they join for a certain amount of time?
It really depends on the client's needs. We can do one-on-one. I have coaching packages. I can do group coaching for people that are in similar circumstances and might benefit from that. So I really
Okay.
try and tailor it to their specific needs.
Because every situation is different, huh?
Every situation and every person is different, and one person's needs are very, very different from another.
Can you tell us about your podcast? Because I was listening to a few episodes the other day and it sounds super interesting.
Thank you so much. I've done a couple podcasts and I'll be doing more in the future. And I've had a couple of divorced clients be brave enough to come share their story. And we just talk about where they were, their emotions, the trauma, and hopefully somebody going through it would feel a little less alone. But we kind of go into anything and everything. We've even talked about dating after divorce and some things to look out for based on one client's experience and husband that wasn't loyal and how that felt. And
So,
we just get into the nitty gritty and we have such a great time. I can't wait to do more. In fact, I've got a podcast coming up with a family law attorney, so I'll be asking him questions about his experience and the process and that kind of thing, and that'll be out in a couple weeks.
I think you should definitely do more because I was listening to them. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is cool.
Thank you for that. That means a lot. I have such a great time. And, it doesn't feel like work to me when you do something you love. And I really
Hmm.
love to help people get through a tough time. And when I'm speaking with clients, we just had a ball on the podcast. And I've had a couple people reach out to me and said, I was going through that. I felt alone. I didn't want to tell my friends and family or whine to them anymore. And sometimes you just need a neutral person. I tell my clients, and I've said this for years, I know your friends and family love you. I know they have the best of intentions, but all they can offer is advice through their experiences. They weren't part of your marriage. Don't let them be part of your divorce. Do what is authentic to you, what you need, and go with your gut. And if that gut says, stay here and keep trying, listen to it. If it says, the time is done and I need to move on, I understand that too. Certainly, if there's physical abuse, and we won't get into any of that. I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not an attorney, but if it's a safe environment, you get to make the choice that's best for you, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says.
That is the best advice, actually, because even when it's coming from family, they usually try to support you. You, not actually not the marriage itself. It's just you because they love you. They want to see you happy. Whatever they think that's going to make you happy, they're going to say it to you. That doesn't mean it's the right thing. So you're absolutely right.
That's 100% correct. And they've probably heard your version of fights along the way. And there's your version, the other person's version, and somewhere in the middle is the actual version. And so God love them. And it's wonderful to have a support system. But your decision should not be influenced because if they went through a divorce and it was ugly, that experience is going to impact the advice they give you. And yours
Mm-hmm.
doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And nobody's doing it with ill will, and I understand that, and I'm not saying it. But as adults, we made the choice to get married, and nobody probably could have talked us out of it. So
That's
again, we
true.
need to stand on our own 2 feet and do what is right for us, despite what anybody else says. And if they are on you, and a lot of people have support or friends or family that want to keep getting in your business, just say, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm going to do what's best for me. Thank you so much for loving me and caring. And that's really all you need to say. That's enough.
Yes, I agree. So, how do you help people avoid making permanent decision and based on temporary emotions? Because I was reading that and I'm just curious to know how you do it.
Over the course of my almost 30 years doing this, I have gotten calls sometimes at 2 o'clock in the morning. People are having knockdown, drag out fights. And in that moment, they want a divorce and they're calling me to start the process. And I always, well, but now I don't take calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. I've turned the phone off. I've learned that lesson. But typically what happens the next day is they're calmer. They've resolved it. They've stepped away. They don't feel the same. So I try and tell people all the time, when emotions are very high, even if you're negotiating a settlement agreement, stop. Don't negotiate anymore. Don't talk anymore. Say we're going to come back to the table when cooler heads prevail. Because once it gets up here, it's very, very hard to come down from. And we're not making the best calm decisions, thoughtful decisions that we can. We're operating out of emotion. And that's very, very different from what we would operate on a calm, thoughtful day.
Yes, I see. So pretty much you just make sure that they step away from everything and come back later on.
Right. If somebody just found out that there's been infidelity and they're distraught and upset, that is not the moment to make major life decisions. That is the moment to digest what you've just learned and grieve through the process or figure out if you want to talk to that person. It's just make small steps, not major life choices based on grief or anger or fear. That's just, to me, doesn't turn out well.
Yeah,
The
usually they
decision may
just
absolutely be the same if you calm down, but at least you've thought it through.
yes, exactly. Because when you're angry, really, you're not thinking clearly. You don't have the right mindset. So pretty much whatever you are doing, probably not going to be the best decision for you, and you're probably going to regret it later. So why taking that decision now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you've ever gotten upset and thought, I'm going to do this and this, and then maybe slept on it, and the next day you had a completely different approach to it. It's the same thing. I just don't think major life decisions of any kind should ever be made in the heat of anger, in the despair of, or depression, or anxiety, or fear. Let's just wait till that emotion has subsided and see what your gut is really telling you to do.
I completely agree with that. As a divorce coach, what is the most difficult part or biggest challenge of your job?
My biggest challenge of the job, I think, depends on the client. Some people want to stay stuck. That emotion,
Hmm.
that anger is working for them because that's the excuse they give for not doing this or why they did that. And they don't want to move forward or they don't want to move past the hurt of the divorce. And so that's my biggest challenge is the unwillingness to move forward or maybe even recognize their own part in the process of moving forward.
Wow. I never really think of it that way, you know? Like, why would you want to be
Yeah.
stuck to where you are when it's not even in a good situation?
I had one client many, many years ago, and I never had them in the same room because it was too volatile. But every time I
Wow.
would get on the phone with her to ask her a question and the other party was nowhere around, she'd start screaming obscenities and calling him names and this and that. And I asked her, I said, listen, I know you're angry. I know this hurts. Trust me, I know. But you're only yelling at me. He's not hearing it. It's
True.
having no impact. And you're only hurting yourself by continuing this rage, this anger. It's 6 months we've been talking and you're no farther than where you were. She goes, oh, I'm happy. I'm happy being mad at him. And she
Wow,
wasn't about to give
really?
that up. Yeah. And I
Oh
am
my
just guessing,
goodness.
and that was probably 5 years ago, but I have a feeling if she heard his name today, that same venom would just flow right out. And she was happy being mad at him. It gave her
Damn.
a payoff. And people do what gives them a payoff.
But that's not really happiness. It's
No, but
anger
in
that's
her
just
eyes,
hurting you inside.
right, but she could not see that. It didn't matter who explained that, friends and family, myself, her children. She was not going to budge from that spot. So she was getting some payoff.
Wow. So
I can
I,
understand what it was.
yeah, it's very like, why would you want to be angry all the time at one person that's probably move on with his life, probably get married, living a good life? Why?
I honestly feel that it was her way of not letting go of him, but
Girl.
that's the way she wanted to package it. And I understand
Huh.
that letting go is very, very painful, but she did not want to deal with that part. She wanted to stand right there, dig her feet in, and be pissed off for God knows how long.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So as a life coach, do you how do you help people as a life coach? Do you have to also be going through a divorce, or is it like a different, like
No, no, no.
anyone in general?
Anyone, anyone. Anxiety, got a lot of clients that I'm helping get through anxiety, and that doesn't have to be brought on by divorce. You know, dating, I've helped people kind of figure out the dating process, especially some women who are over 50 years young. They're having a difficult time, and sometimes they just need a neutral person to help them come up with a plan or some ideas or to listen and validate what they're feeling.
Wow. I can't believe you actually, that's a lot of work. Especially working with
But
women,
it
you know?
doesn't, yeah, women or men, and it doesn't feel like work when you absolutely love what you do. I really, for the most part, love people. And if I can, again, make a very small difference and make somebody a little better off when they leave than when they got here, it just fills me up. I had one divorce client, and we go back to the parties never being on the same page. The husband had made an appointment with me. Both parties showed up. She didn't really know what the appointment was for, and I didn't. He made it seem like they were both on the same page. When she got into my office, she had no idea that he wanted a divorce. So it was a very uncomfortable first
Oh,
meeting. She was angry, blindsided, upset, and he was just acting like they had had this discussion 100 times before. So when she left, she called my
wow.
office and I said, listen, you owe me. She called to apologize for her behavior. I said, you owe me no apology. Anybody would have felt the same way. If you want to talk about it, I'm offered my services. And she came in, and the minute we started meeting the first time, there was anger. She couldn't stop crying. Um,
Oh,
Understandably so. We worked together for probably 8 weeks. And now she is, oh, she's grown so much. She's a happy, beautiful woman on the inside and outside. She has just turned into this amazing person that was always there. She was just kind of stifled in the marriage, blindsided by the divorce, and had no self worth. And she's just worked so hard on herself. And it's just been a wonderful thing to see. I still keep in touch with her. She's doing amazing, happier than ever. So it's possible And I don't take the credit. I was just a very small part. But when somebody really wants to move through it or go into the next chapter, whatever that looks like, from a divorce, from beating anxiety, whatever that may be, if they want to go through it and design a way that they'd be happy in moving forward, that's what I'm here to help with.
And you help both men and women.
Absolutely.
Do you also do life coach with children, or just you just stay with adult,
You
like the
know,
whole
I haven't
family?
had the pleasure of working with children. Mostly it's adults. You know, I'm trying to think of if children need life coaches. I'm sure in their teens there's a lot of decisions and stuff that they could benefit from. I'd like to think that children are so innocent and so that no problems have gotten to them yet. But as you say that, it dawns on me that there's a need. But my work has been with adults primarily.
Primarily. So how do you communicate with your clients? Is it like in person, online, or you using something else?
Both. I like in-person meetings. I think it's um, just a better way to go. I know it's a new world and new things are changing, so we do Zoom. I've even done telephone calls. It really depends on the client's preference and their schedule. Sometimes we do one in person and then one Zoom, and then we do a phone call if their work schedule is difficult or whatever we need to do. There's something to me
Do you
about
focus?
being in the same room that I prefer, but I'm open.
It's more. It's like it's a connection.
Yes.
It's a connection. You have that connection. You get to see the real feelings, everything that's how that person is feeling right now at this moment, compared to being online or over the phone. It's harder to feel it.
Right. I think that there's a little bit of energy that's lost in the translation or harder to pick up on when you're on the phone or on Zoom. Even though we can see each other clearly, you miss some body language cues or some it's just much like a text that can be misinterpreted. There's some missing link to it.
Absolutely. But do you offer your services anywhere within the United States or only in your state?
Anybody who would benefit or needs some help, I am open to it. So if that means zooming across the world, I'm okay with that.
Awesome.
I've
Wow. You are
talked to
worldwide.
people in it. I think I've had one person out of the country and several in other states. So I'm open.
You open to that. So
Yes.
you have created all this and been helping so many people. But my question is, what is next for you?
Next for me is I would love to continue this work. I love this work. I'm going to be doing more podcasts. I'll be speaking at some events. For some groups. I've got some upcoming that I'll post and just continue doing the work and seeing how many people that I can help be a little better off than when we first met. Maybe save a marriage here and there.
Not here and there. I think like you say you're doing a lot of more than that.
I hope so. I've done thousands of divorces over my 30-year career. I would love to say in not so short a time period that I've saved thousands of marriages.
Yes, but look at it this way too. Even when they decide to get a divorce, sometimes it's for the best because probably you save a life too. Because you don't know what's going on in this household. Maybe
Right,
that person was getting beat up all the time. Maybe that woman could have ended up being dead, or the entire family end up
right.
dead. But you save a life. You
I
never
want to
know.
save people in a healthy marriage. You're absolutely right. Sometimes divorce is the right option and the only option, and that's okay. There should be no shame, no fear. When you go through a divorce, you can feel like you failed. And if you have truly tried everything you can, then you can move on with your head held high and know that you're making the right decision. If you have one fight and you say, I don't want to do this anymore, that is completely different than somebody who's given it their all, given 100%, tried everything they know how to try, and it still doesn't work. And then it's time to go if that's the right decision.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. What advice would you give to women getting a divorce, going through the whole process?
If it's a woman in a healthy marriage, and we're going to take anybody that's getting abused off the table, because that is just awful, and I want those people to get out and get safe and all that stuff, and I won't even touch on that. But number one, think about it before you act. Maybe there's something else you can try to make it work. If you can say that you've clearly communicated your needs and your expectations and they're not being met, and you've tried everything you can, and you're ready for a divorce, then move forward. But try and do it amicably. Nobody wants to go through the time, stress, and money of a court battle. There's no winners. And when the two parties work together amicably, they get to remain in control of the settlement. And nobody's going to tell them how to divide their stuff. They get to choose. And it's better for the kids. So if you've tried everything and it's time to move on, don't feel like a failure. Try and get through it amicably. Know that there is life after divorce and you will be okay.
I love it. Anything else you'd like to share with us before I let you go? Because I know I take a lot of your times
No,
already.
it's been my pleasure. I think I'm good. Just anybody who needs me, hopefully you can put up some contact information. It's just my passion to help people moving forward, and love to be a help to anybody who's listening, anybody who needs it. I'll be putting up more podcasts coming, and I'll let you know when they air so you can listen. And thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to meet with me today. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love meeting other women that's helping not just people but women. You know, I'm a big advocate for women when it's come to supporting other women. So,
Absolutely.
like you said, if they need help, reach out to you because don't try to go through a divorce alone because I can understand how hard it is. I haven't been through one myself, but
I'm
I
knocking
can
on wood
understand the
that you
feeling
don't.
of it, of going through one.
Clearly communicate, clearly communicate your expectations and your wants and needs to your husband. Nothing is stupid or small. You guys just make sure you communicate, and I'm knocking on wood that you will have the happy marriage that you want and deserve.
Okay, I'm guessing Lorie do not want to see me on her at her office at all. So okay, no divorce on the table.
Well, I would be happy to help you. That's not what I want for you or anybody, but sometimes it's inevitable, and I'm here to help anybody going through a difficult time. I can understand both personally and professional what it's like, and it's just my passion to help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lorie, for being with us today. I appreciate the time and your energy, and you're just making me feel like welcome.
Oh,
And I love it. So thank
that's
you.
that's wonderful. Thank you. I enjoyed our talk and hope to see you again soon.
What a great conversation with Lorie. United States divorce rate is high, and part of it can be fixed if people just take the time to communicate and avoid making decisions out of anger. Hey, it's great to have someone like Lorie that care about saving couples' marriage. Thank you, Lorie, for taking the time to have this conversation with me, and thank you for listening to this week's episode. Let me know your thoughts about this episode and your experience with divorce. To learn more about Lorie, visit www.loriedwoodspiers.com. Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.